What up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. It's your boy Jordan, and I'm going to be talking to y'all about how I made $5,464.73. I'm gonna walk y'all through my strategy, how I was able to find the setup, what did I do, step by step in order to find the setup, and how I was able to manage it. And there's really no managing because after I execute, I just leave it be and let it run. But yeah, so today's video, I made around $2,565.37 on my personal account. I'll pop that up here. And then I made $2,899.36 on my funding challenge, FTMO. Combine those two numbers together, you get $5,464.73. This is how we got that number. So before we jump into the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Like always, y'all are just helping me get more out there in the algorithm, get recommended a little bit more by YouTube, and so on and so forth. And then when y'all comment, I just want to see if y'all like the videos, enjoy the videos, you get something from the video. If you don't get something from the video, I just want y'all to comment. The way I trade is very simple. There's no like extra terminologies and stuff like that, bro. I am a simple break and retest trader. I don't trade fair value gaps. I don't trade trend lines. I don't trade these triangle patterns. I am break and retest. Once I see it, I enter. Everything else is just out of my control. So enough talking. Let's just jump to the charts, and I'm just going to walk y'all through how I found this setup. All right, so I'm just gonna walk through what I was thinking in my head. Bear with me if I don't do a good job of breaking everything down. This is when you should just simply join the Discord and ask more questions. It's free of charge. You don't pay anything. You're just in the Discord with like-minded individuals. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just start breaking it down, giving y'all my mindset behind this trade. So first things first, what I do is I identify the structure on the daily, 4-hour, and the 1-hour time frame. This allows me to get a better understanding on which way the market is heading, since the overall higher time frames rule the judgment of which way the market is going to move. So in the daily time frame, I took my tool, I started down here, I had that low, high, this is a pivot, we have this break of structure, so I had the recent break, we have that new higher low, higher high, then we did this, boom, boom. I then dragged this over here. I marked off my higher lows and higher highs to see if we had any type of break of structure. If you don't know what a higher high or a higher low is, I recorded a video on my YouTube talking about market structure. This just allows you to understand bullish and bearish trends, how to identify those trends. Go check it out and then come back to this video so you get a better understanding, or not. Just simply stick through it and continue to just watch this breakdown. So we have my higher high, higher low. I then saw price give me a break past this higher low, which then marked this off as my new lower low. I then found my lower high to be here because that's the last high point that presented us with the break of structure. And then at the moment, we saw that price did not perform any other breaks. So my daily time frame was bearish. And then I always use my line charts because it's cleaner to understand that, hey, this is the daily structure point. So this is why I use my line charts like so. And then I had this recent break of structure. So daily time frame were bearish. Next was to identify this off of the 4-hour. My 4-hour time frame, I saw that price was trending bullish. We then went bearish, and then we had the continuation breakout happen around here. If I drag this over right there, I saw that we had this lower low. We had my lower high being here. When I saw this break of structure breaking past that lower low, I then marked this off as being my lower high because this was the last high point that presented us with the break of structure. And then I had that new lower low being there. So we see price was in a bearish trend on the 4-hour. So I then marked that off. Next was the 1-hour time frame. What was the 1-hour time frame telling me? 1 hour, we were trending bearish, then went bullish, continuation move. Then we had the switch of structure take place. So if I move this to around right here, I obviously saw that this was my break of structure happened here. So this was that lower low. I then had this lower high. Did we break past this? Oh no, that was a break of structure. So it started like this. So we then went bullish. So I had that higher high, then had this higher low. And then I saw price give me this break, which then transitioned this back to being in a bearish trend because this was now my new lower high and this was my new lower low. So boom. Okay, so the 1 hour was also bearish, which is good. All right, so first things first was I saw that all my time frame. Oh, I was tripping. I had a brain fart. So I saw all my time frames were in this bearish trend, which is good. This is what I want to see. Either 2 or more of my higher time frames telling me one direction, but in this case we had all 3 time frames telling us bearish, which is even better. Next thing was where are we at in the market. So when I go to the Discord, drew out the 5 market conditions I look for to trade. So we have the 5 conditions being in a bullish trend, when I'm above my recent break of structure, when I'm below that recent break of structure, counter trend, when I'm looking for sales when price is bullish, this is a counter trend, sales at this high point, counter trend, sales at these, buys at these lows, flow to market. These are all coming from the daily time frame. So whatever the daily time frame structure is telling me, this is how I make my judgment on what type of trade I will be taking. And then for the sales, it's the same thing. The recent break, if we're underneath that zone, I'm looking for sales. If we're above that zone, I'm looking for buys. If we're at these lows, finding rejection, I'm looking for buys. At these lows, finding rejection, I'm looking for buys. And then I will be looking for sales if we're at that lower high. In this case, if I go back towards the daily time frame, what can I see? I see that we have that lower high, lower low, recent break of structure. So I'm not at my recent break of structure. I'm not at my recent lower low. I'm at my recent lower high, and price is forming rejection, which shows me that I am in setup number 5, the last setup, where price gives you the break. We then have the pullback, and instead of us breaking past our lower high, we find rejection, and I'm looking for sales back towards the downside. Yes, we're trading with the flow to market, but we're not going to be in sync with the daily time frame. What do I mean by being in sync? Well, simply when price on the daily time frames performs this break of structure, I want to see my 4-hour time frame perform some type of break of structure as well. Again, like y'all know, having different structure, since each time frame is different, each time frame will have different structure. But at the same time, as soon as the daily time frame performs the break, the 4-hour time frame should also be performing the break. This is in sync. This is the sync I want to see. Well, this is the synchronization I want to see with the daily and the 4-hour. But in this case, I know for a fact that the daily time frame and the 4-hour time frame are not going to be in sync. So instead of the daily and the 4-hour being in sync, I then want to see the 4-hour and the 1-hour doing this setup. That will be more of a higher probability, since those time frames will form more structure, since it's my lower time frames, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I'm looking now for the 4-hour and the 1-hour to be in sync, since I know that the daily and the 4-hour won't be in sync. Because if we're just looking at the daily time frame, we had so much going on, so much structure being formed, that I know for a fact the 4-hour is not going to be in sync. If the daily and the 4-hour are in sync, I want to be the first one on the daily performing a break, the first one on the 4-hour performing a break. I want to be the first one on the daily forming this pullback. I want to be the first one on the 4-hour forming this pullback. In this case, that is not happening. Therefore, we don't use the daily and the 4-hour. We use the 4-hour and the 1-hour. So now, knowing that this is what we're looking for this synchronization, this is what pushes us to be in a counter trend scenario. Because again, if I go back towards the Discord, I also wrote out that when I'm trading with the trend, the daily and the 4-hour will be in sync. This is when we identified our trend. And since the daily and the 4-hour are in sync, I'm able to find my area of interest on the 4-hour. This is not the case. Right now, this would be a counter trend setup, because the 4-hour and the 1-hour, we've already identified we're in the same trend. And since we are in sync, I will use the 1-hour time frame to find my area of interest. Now you're about to see what I mean. So going back towards the chart, I know that all my given time frames, we already found it. I already found that we are at my lower high point of the market. So I'm looking for sales back towards the downside. This is a counter trend scenario, which is when I only use these given time frames to find my entry. So now, on the daily time frame, I saw that price reach this lower high. We formed a rejection the first time. We formed a rejection the second time, forming this double top scenario, and as well giving us this entry signal on the higher time frames, this bearish engulfing. So as soon as I saw this rejection, and as soon as I saw price give us this bearish engulfing, I went towards the 4-hour time frame. On the 4-hour time frame, what did I see? I saw the continuation break of structure happen around here. If we drag out our lower low like so, this is when I saw the break of structure. Keep in mind, I use the body candles to make my judgment. Once I see a body candle close below another body candle, this is my breaker structure. I don't look at the wicks because, for instance, say if I'm using a line chart, we see clear as day the body of the candle being the precise structure of the market. So that's what I want to use, the body of the candle. You see on the line chart, it doesn't show you those wicks. The only thing the wick is showing you or telling you is that this is where price has reached, but it didn't have enough strength to close. So on the 4-hour time frame, as soon as I saw price perform this break of structure on the 4-hour, I went towards the 1-hour to see if we were also performing some type of break of structure towards the downside. Keep in mind, this is the 4-hour lower low. On the 1-hour time frame, I saw that exact same thing. On the 1-hour, we saw price was bullish, that then went bearish, and as soon as price performed the break of structure on the 4-hour time frame, if we go back to it, as soon as we had this break of structure happen on the 4-hour, going back towards the 1-hour, we see that break of structure happen around here as well. So we see the 4-hour and the 1-hour time frame being in sync, which is perfect. Now, in order for me to be ready for my entry levels or be ready to take a position, what's the next step? Well, I have to find my area of interest. And this is able to take place because the 4-hour and the 1-hour are in sync, and I'm simply using the 1-hour time frame to find this area of interest. So the area of interest is the simple, where's your last structure break? So if we draw out structure once more, we saw price perform this break, the first break of structure. We then had the continuation breaking past the structure. So this is the last structure break on the 1-hour time frame. Hence is why we have this box tool drawn out at this area. And then, oops, I didn't mean to delete that. So now when we drag this out towards the left, what can we also see? That this was an area of support / resistance. And when price is above, we respect it as support. When price is below, we respect it as resistance. So what is the probability of price pulling back towards the zone, respecting it as resistance, and then having the continuation move back towards the downside? I say it's pretty high because it happened numerous times in the past. When price was above, we respected it as support. When price was below, we respected it as resistance. So I wanted to see that same thing take place. But also, right, keep in mind, I am a break and retest trader. So this will be allowing the 1-hour to perform the break and retest. Will it also allow the 4-hour to perform the break and retest as well? Yes, because if we draw this out one more time, I'm going to show y'all something that y'all are missing. So what did we see? We see that price performed, let's extend this since this is a demonstration. We see price perform this break of structure on the 4-hour, breaking past our recent lower lows. We then see that this is our new lower high. And before price performed any type of, retracement, we just know that price is going to form a low point in the market. So say price start to form the retracement, boom, we see that this was the lowest point now in the market. We can then mark this off as our lower low. So where could we see price perform the break and retest? Would it be here? No, it would not be there. Why? Because even though the entire structure of the market is telling us a bearish move, where is the last structure break inside of this overall trend? It happens to be right here. This is our last structure break inside of our overall bearish trend. So now I am expecting price on the 4-hour to have the pullback towards the last structure break, performing this beautiful break and retest to then have the continuation towards the downside. And if you pay close attention, this last structure break on the 4-hour time frame is also in sync with what? It is in sync with the 1-hour break of structure. So now we see that the 4-hour and the 1-hour are even more in sync, highering the probability of our trade playing in our favor. So now, as I'm waiting for the 1-hour to perform the retest of this recent break of structure, this will also allow the 4-hour to perform the break and retest as well, confirming the break and retest setup. So now I just simply wait for price to pull back towards my zone. The moment price pulled back into my zone, you can see on the 1-hour time frame, we tapped back into. And keep in mind, what would be the next step? we will wait for the shifter structure with the 15-minute bearish engulfing entry. What do I mean? Well, in order for the 1 hour time frame and the 4 hour time frame to form this retracement back towards my recent breaker structure, my lower time frame, the 5-minute, would have to go from bearish to bullish to allow these higher time frames to form that retracement. And that's exactly what happened. We went from this bearish to bullish trend to allow us to tap back into. And now for me to find my entry, I wait for the shifter structure getting back in sync with the higher time frame. Well, the first breaker structure happened to be here. But the moment price gave me this breaker structure on the 5-minute, I went towards the 15-minute time frame. I didn't have my entry signal. My entry signal is this, where's an example? This bearish engulfing. This is what I would be looking for. I did not have that. Yes, we had this bearish variation pattern, and on the second bearish candle, it performed the engulfing past that bullish candle. But if I find an entry down here, we're already close towards my take profit zone, which makes this trade invalid. It doesn't make sense. Your risk to reward is out of whack. You shouldn't enter this trade. So we don't enter this trade. We wait for a better setup. And on a 1 hour time frame, if we go back to it, we can see clear as day, price never reached our lows, which is a good sign. Because if I'm using the 1 hour time frame for my area of interest, I'm using the 1 hour lows for my take profit. And if price would have had this push tapping back towards these lows, it already showed me the move happen, which means I don't need to be looking for positions anymore. But in this case, it did not happen. Price had a push. We didn't reach these lows. Price then had the retracement, forming this double top scenario. And if I fast forward towards our entry, what happened? We then had a triple top scenario be formed. We see the first rejection, second rejection, and now the third rejection towards our zone. This is when I went back towards the 5-minute time frame to look for entries. Again, we're still waiting for the shifter structure to take place on the 5-minute. The first time it happened around here, our entry came way too low, which made this trade invalid. The second breaker structure, you can see the second breaker structure is lower than the first one, which tells you I'm not looking for a position on this setup either. So now I'm continue to wait. Price then had the bearish to bullish flip once more on the 5-minute time frame. And now what happened? The moment price gave me this 5-minute breaker structure, look what happened on the 15-minute time frame. It also left me with this beautiful bearish engulfing. And it's important that with the bearish engulfing on the 15-minute, it's also showing you the break of structure on that 5-minute time frame. We want the entry to come below the break of structure on the 5-minute because it just shows us the validation of this setup. It's showing us that volatility is there. It's showing us that we have our entry signal, we have the break of structure, and as well, we're below this area that is treated as resistance. So this is when I found my entry, and like I told y'all, I use the 1 hour time frame as my area of interest. I use the 1 hour time frame lows for my take profit. And you can see the first take profit zone being at the body of these candles got me a 1.33 RR in return, which is fine. As long as I get back a 1-to-1 at the first take profit level, I would take my trade. Anything below that, I don't take the trade. So the moment I saw I was getting back a positive risk to reward, I then just adjusted my take profit towards a 1-to-2. I always look for a 1-to-2 because I look to just double my reward, and that's simply it. So I have my take profit set up at a 1-to-2. And look what took place. I had my stop loss set up. I never put a take profit because when I'm right, I squeeze out more profit. What take place? Price went directly towards our targets. And then the moment price hit my take profit zone, I went towards the 4 hour time frame. On the 4 hour, we see this huge rejection candle. But at the same time, what has just happened? We see that price also recently gave us another break of structure, which is showing us the continuation towards our direction. So I held price for a little longer. And what happened? Price gave me this extra push, squeezing us out a 3.86, I believe it was, in return. Or was it 2.86? Y'all, I don't remember where the freaking take profit was set. Oh, it's 2.86. Yeah. It squeezed out an extra 0.86 pips. Like, who's going to be mad at 2.86 pips? Again, if I bring this back up, and if I go back towards our call out, we see clear as day. I closed out for 2% because I believe it was Friday, and price hit that following Monday. Let me see. Yeah, it was Friday. Price hit Monday our targets with ease because this was my full take profit zone, being at 2.86% in return. But yeah, this is my plan. This is how I go about catching all of my trades. I don't do anything more, anything less. I simply just trade, break, and retest, and I align all the given time frames for my advantage. That's it. If y'all like the video, let me know in the comments down below. And like I say all the time, more stuff like this is coming to the channel day in and day out. I will never not post about trading. I love trading so much, is the reason why I post these videos for y'all to watch. You don't have to struggle, bro. Like, people have already went through it. People have already overcame the things that you're facing, especially when you're at the beginning stage. So just find the right mentor. I always thought like finding a mentor is stupid. You don't need a mentor. You figure it out on yourself. That's the route I took. And it took me around 3.5 to 4 years to actually become profitable. So I would say three and a half years, because the last 6 months is when everything just changed for myself. But yeah, like I said, just find your mentor. Don't go about it trying to learn for yourself, because it's such a long time of just trials and error. But with a mentor, you can learn the lessons there is to be learned without having to go through the trial. So it saves you so much time. Yes, don't get me wrong, you're still going to face those problems that you're going to have to face on your journey by yourself, but it's not going to be as stressful as it would be if you was doing it alone with no help. So find somebody, learn from that person, and go from there. Only reason I say I would never change what I did is because I was able to develop this strategy that I use day in and day out that brought us back $2,500, well, $5,000 in return on this trade alone. It allowed me to flip $60 to $1,000 and allowed me to help many other people do the same thing for themselves as far as becoming profitable with the trading industry. I don't promote anything. If y'all want help from me, like I said, join in the link down below and we'll go from there. But that's it. Y'all have a blessed one, and I'm going to catch y'all in the next one. Deuces.